Welcome to another episode of Stand Tall. It is December 8th, and we are in Chapter 4 of The Art of War. Coming in to the last couple of verses, verse 19 and 20, before we get to Chapter 5. So, without further ado, verse 19. A victorious army opposed to a routed one, as a pound weight placed in the scale against a single grain, is as a pound weight. 20. The onrush of a conquering force is like the bursting of pent-up waters into a chasm 1,000 fathoms deep. Conquering force. So a victorious army, a conquering force. A victorious army is as a pound in the scale as opposed to a single grain. A victorious army is like the pent up force of 1,000 in the chasm. All right. Chapter 5 next. Let's go to an alternate translation this morning, real quick, and see what Master Sun says. He says, therefore, a victorious army is like a pound compared to a gram. A defeated army is like a gram compared to a pound. When the victorious get their people to go to battle, as if they were directing a massive flood of water into a deep canyon, this is a matter of formation. Dumu says that when water accumulates in a deep canyon, no one can measure its amount, just as our defense shows no form. When the water is released, it rushes down in a torrent, just as our attack is irresistible. So we've studied all of this that we've been studying in formation. He wraps it up with saying that, like, just as a massive flood of water in a deep canyon, this is a matter of formation, right? So this is how he like ties it up. This is how Sun Tzu ties it up at the end of the chapter, that like we've studied all of this, and that in order to if we follow the tenets of formation that he has laid out, then we will be victorious and we will be unstoppable like a rush of water. And so I think for me, when I read this, I think of like your mental state of being, right? Like I think of your mindset and how mindset matters. And so if you're going into it with confidence and you know that you're going to be victorious, then that's like a pound versus a grain. Um, that has a lot of weight to be confident. So confidence is key. All right, December 8th out of the Daily Stoic. Don't hide from your feelings. It's better to conquer grief than to deceive it. Seneca, on Consolation to Helvia, 17.1b. We've all lost people we were close to, a friend, a colleague, a parent, a grandparent. While we were suffering from our grief, some well-meaning person did their best to take our mind off of it or make us think about something else for a couple hours. However kind, these gestures are misguided. The Stoics are stereotyped as suppressing their emotions, but their philosophy was actually intended to teach us to face, process, and deal with emotions immediately instead of running from them. Tempting as it is to deceive yourself or hide from a powerful emotion like grief by telling yourself and other people that you're fine, awareness and understanding are better. Distraction might be pleasant in the short term by going to gladiatorial games, as a Roman might have done, for example. Focusing is better in the long term. That means facing it now. Process and parse what you are feeling. Remove your expectations, your entitlements, your sense of having been wronged. Find the positive in the situation, but also sit with your pain and accept it, remembering that it is a part of life, and that's how one conquers grief. Wow, that's heavy. Because it's not fair when those things happen. It's not fair, and that's, I guess, part of grief. It's so easy to say, reflecting on big times of pain, that yes, this is part of life, but sometimes things aren't part of life, and well, they are, but you know what I mean. They're not fair parts of life, and that is a tough one to deal with. Even though you have to accept, I guess, the hand that fate has dealt, right? It's still one thing to read about it and reflect and think, okay, over 15 years ago I lost my grandmother to cancer, but it's a whole nother thing to talk about losing a child or someone who was taken way too young. I don't know. I'm struggling to bring Sun Tzu and Stoicism together today, but I think that grief can either, I guess here's one, grief can defeat us, and it can be, we can either be a victorious army, and we can have our weight behind it, and we can accept, we can take it in stride as a stoic would, and accept it for what it is, and then continue to try to move forward. Or we can be as light as a grain of sand, or a grain of rice against that pound, and let it overtake us, and then not be that victorious army. So as we think about that and reflect on that, let's keep standing tall, and we'll see y'all on the next one.